Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Choose to Think Inspirational podcast. I'm Victoria Leiden, and I'm so glad that you're here. I want to tell you about this book. Right here it is. It's called Defying, not defining, but Defying, DEFYING, Fear. And it's written by Dr. Nancy Meyer, Meyer. It is a fictional story inspired by a compilation of true events, and it's going to inspire people to defy fear in their own lives by embracing their true value through a focus on spiritual, emotional, and physical practices. From the outside, Lila Frost seems to have it all together. She's the protagonist. She is smart, educated, and accomplished, but behind closed doors, she endures consistent abuse from her husband. Although she does not fully recognize the abuse, that abuse is part of her story. Anxiety and fear are unwelcome familiars in Lila's daily life. For years, she believes the lies as well as the blatant and veiled threats her husband continually throws at her. But as Lila rekindles her faith with the support of friends, she learns to defy her fear, take courageous steps, and embrace her own value. The question is, can she sustain her newfound transformation, or will those old patterns once again drive her into a pit of depression and despair? Lila's future depends on one thing: choosing courage and acting in faith again and again. Oh, it's so compelling. And when I picked it up, when I first got it and began reviewing it, it was as if I just couldn't stop. It was one of those books. I want you to meet Dr. Nancy, or Nancy as she prefers to be called. She's a speaker who engages her audiences, shedding new light on topics such as defying fear, managing stress, and achieving true healthy living. As a licensed chiropractic physician and an accomplished midlife Ironman triathlete, she assists individuals of all ages in confronting their fears, overcoming their anxieties, and discovering the beauty of a victorious life. Dr. Nancy offers individual and business courage coaching, providing first-hand knowledge in every session. She understands the mental, emotional, and spiritual factors that influence physical well-being, recognizing that a balanced workforce improves productivity both at home and work. You will receive guidance and practical benefits from Dr. Nancy's exercises, activities, tips, and tools. Her fun-filled, joyful spirit brings laughter and fosters a deeper love for oneself and others in every coaching session and presentations. You can find courage, embrace your value, and defy your fear. You can reach out to Dr. Nancy at her website is drnancymeyer.com. So it's NANCYMEYER.com. She's on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and you can, of course, get the book on Amazon. So I'm going to let you just jump right on in. We're going to dive right on into this compelling conversation that I had with Dr. Nancy. She is so personable and kind-hearted and generous with her time and her take on life. The story that she shares in her book, Defying Fear, although it's a compilation of a lot of women's stories as told to her, and she accumulated those stories, you may find yourself somewhere in these pages for one reason or another. You're saying, hey, I was not in an abusive relationship, but you may have areas of your life that you can really relate to this book. She talks a lot about your thoughts, taking thoughts captive, and what it means to affirm biblical truth in your life. So without further ado, here's Nancy. Welcome, Nancy, to the Choose to Think podcast. We're glad that you're here.
Hey, thank you. Glad to be here. I appreciate it.
Yeah, just as Nancy and I were talking before, and should I call you Dr. Nancy, by the way? I didn't ask you
Call me
that.
Nancy, especially if you invite me for dinner. You can call me whatever you want.
Okay. Yeah, I just, how sometimes you meet people and you're like, oh, it's so easy to talk with this person. And that's exactly how I've been feeling the last 5 or 10 minutes here, just chatting with Nancy. And, you're in for such a treat today because I want to just go ahead and show this book. I want to make sure everybody can see it. Defying Fear, Finding the Courage to Embrace Your True Value. So when I got this book in order to review it a little bit and kind of talk about it even on the show, and it's been several weeks now that I've actually read it. But when I got it, I was thinking, okay, this is another book about facing your fear and like being an overcomer, or like doing something great, or like, I want to open a bakery and but I'm too afraid to do that. I was kind of thinking that maybe that was what it might be about, because fear is talked about so much nowadays. And I was so captivated by what this book is actually about. And it may be some of all of those things that I mentioned, but it is so much deeper than that. And this was a book that once I started reading, I wanted to go back to it. You throw it on the stand by your bed or in the office, and then you're like, oh, I want to go read more of that. And that's kind of how I felt. So Nancy, if you could just start and tell the readers how this all came about. And well, let me just end it there. What is this all about?
So how it first started was in 2004. I felt God tell me that I'm going to write a book and speak. And so, which 2004 is like, 19 years later, right? So a little delayed. And
Okay.
I encourage, your listeners too, that just because God places something on your heart or you have a dream and you haven't accomplished it, don't get mad. Because maybe for me, the story hadn't been revealed yet that God wanted me to tell. And also you have to have time to process. And so anyway, he said that, and he also said wear leather pants. Well, I got that right away because it was a conference. All these women were wearing leather pants, so I got the leather pants. That was no problem.
That was a long time ago, right?
Yes, that's right. That's right. And so, but anyway, so last year, it came out in July, and you write it about a year before that's when he finished. But then I realized too, everything that I've gone through, that he wanted that to be part of the story, because it's not what I've done, it's what he's done through me. And it's a combination of multiple women's true stories, and it's to inspire people to defy fear in their own lives by embracing their true value, and doing that through spiritual, emotional, and physical practices, which we know ultimately is the true value is Christ in us. It's actually our unshakable self-worth through Christ. And it's more than just, okay, I'm feel good or I'm this or that. It's actually finding your true value, which I think is what you really try to show on your podcast.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. Well, tell us about the main character, Lila, and the way she's developed in this particular book.
Well, so to take example for me is with Lila as the main character, like you said, and Jesus told stories through parables. He didn't preach at you. He didn't yell at you. He didn't tell you how bad you were. You went on the story with him. And that's with the book, it's told through Lila, but you actually go through the journey with her. You feel her pain. You feel her hurts. You feel her struggle. You feel her real person that she is, but also you feel her victory and her triumph and her little steps of starting to get confident and overcoming and finding and holding on to her faith. It's more than, like I said, it's not preaching. Then also having the tidbits at the end to actually help you in real life. It's not a fairy tale. It's based on all true stories, but it's also where, like I said, you have that reality of life in it, not just, hey, here's something. You can actually be like, okay, they went through this. How can I survive this too?
Mm-hmm. Talk a little bit about the marriage aspect of all of this.
Well, that's a loaded question in it.
It
I always
is.
say God has a sense of humor because he wants men and women to live together, right? But the thing is that your mate, what I've learned, is your soulmate. It may not be what you pictured it to be. I know for me, I am remarried now, and he's short and hairy, and that is not what I pictured at all. But I feel more loved, cherished, and valued by him than I ever have in my whole entire life. And that's how God wants us to feel, women. I mean, he wants us to be cherished. He wants us to be loved and valued. And I encourage everyone listening to embrace that and strive for that and know that they are worthy enough to feel that. For me, a long time, I did not. I was so lonely, and I just didn't think I thought I was being ungrateful. I had a beautiful house, business, successful business, kids, that's all. But I thought, well, I'm ungrateful if I'm not happy, but I wasn't happy. And I think you should always try to work things out. And if it doesn't work out, why is that? What part have you contributed? But what part maybe are you in a not so good relationship? And I was people like say you need to get out of a relationship that's not healthy. But until someone values themselves and learns to love themselves, which is valued like Christ values us, which Christ died on the cross for us, a brutal death for us, for me, for you. I mean, you just think about that. We take it for granted and we think, oh yeah, we know that. But he did that for me. I mean, why? There's no reason for it, but he did it because he loves us, period. And so learn to value yourself, see yourself through God's eyes, not put yourself on a pedestal, but through God's eyes. And then you'll learn to be in the healthy relationship and be the healthy person you need to be, where you're feeling valued and loved and cherished.
Can you tell us, Nancy, like, how do you do that? How do you mentally, like, wake up one day and say, oh, I'm not going to be that other person, how I used to think about these things and how I used to process these things. I'm going to do something new. I know it doesn't exactly happen like that, but how does that happen? Or what do we do? Let's say we're in an abusive marriage, but we have no idea what health really looks like, much less how to move toward it. What are there practical things that we can do? Is it just a realization? Is it someone speaking to us, speaking life to us? I don't know what that really looks like, really. How would you explain that process?
I think it's a combination of things, but I think the way the world teaches us now is like, it's instant. All right, you just change your mind, boom, it's done. It doesn't work that way. And that's everybody should change. Like a year later, you should be a different person, not like completely, opposite, but just changing. It's baby steps. It's like, training for my half Ironmans. I don't get in shape the first day. It's taking those baby steps. It's like, if you want to get in shape, walk to the mailbox, right? So for me, it was saying affirmations, words of affirmation. And, biblical ones is, of course, the best. And putting Bible verses around. I had a lot of anxiety, and, stress, worry, whatever you want to call it, fear. And I had to, defying the fear, right? I had to place those Bible verses around my house is what I did. Like I'd put it on my mirror so I would see that every day. And one is Philippians 4:6-7, do not worry, pray. And then, the part 2, I repeated that so many times, and then I realized, it's saying, be thankful, because when you do thankful, you get peace of God will go into your heart. And so it's doing that day in and day out, and you will not see a change the next day, but you will in a few weeks or a few months. And it's just doing what you're supposed to do, and then having people positive around you to reinforce that. Then that's when those things, you'll see those changes. But it does not happen overnight. I think that's the thing. I always tell people, working out, you don't work out to lose weight, because as soon as you work out, you don't see the lost weight at all. So then you're depressed and you don't do it. But if you say, I'm going to relieve my stress, as soon as you work out, and you're like, hey, I feel less stress. So it's doing those baby steps daily and making it become a habit. Then that's when you see the change.
Yeah, so good. I often tell people that you just can't learn Spanish in 21 days or whatever. The program say, learn Spanish fast. It really doesn't happen. I teach Spanish on the university level. I've done that for 30 years, and everyone wants that get rich quick kind of path to whatever their goal is. And when we're talking about heart change and emotional change and changing our thoughts, changing our mindsets and our attitudes, it's such a good reminder to go easy on ourselves in the middle of all of that, and to celebrate, yes, I'm de-stressed because I'm, working out or whatever it might be. I'm lifting weights, I may not see increased bone mass immediately, but if I continue doing what's right, that's going to take me there, then eventually the change will be noticed, hopefully on like a bone scan or something. But
Can I say
yeah,
one more thing?
yeah, absolutely.
I think too, a big thing in women, I think, are worse at this
Hmm.
is, although we're good at a lot of things, is positive words to ourselves. And so what I
Yes.
mean by that is when you say, you know, I'm slow or I'm fat or I'm whatever, negative. God does not want that. And we're not allowing him to do his work in us if all we say is that. Because if you, as you speak your words, your mind will go.
That's
So
right.
if you want to be thinner, say, you know what, I'm not where I want to be, but God's working on me. I'm not in shape that maybe, but God's working on me. I'm going to be in shape. Or if you're running, yeah, you're slower than maybe somebody else, but you know what? I guarantee you're faster than somebody else. So make sure you say those positive words. Don't say the negative words, not just the affirmations, but the negative words. And I think that affects our kids too, the daughters especially. They see that, you know, I'm not, you know, I'm fat, I'm whatever. Then the kids, they start thinking they are too when they don't even have anything yet, you know?
That's
I
right.
think that's
Oh,
huge.
yeah, that is so important. For some reason, we just gravitate toward that negativity, don't we? And we may even catch ourselves saying things like always and never. I hear people, even on the pickleball court, for example, we were talking about pickleball earlier, saying things like, I never can play well on this court. I never do well in this league. And I'm like, wait, why are you speaking that over yourself? They limit their opportunity for growth and for change and for possibility. It's like they've cinched it and then that's just the way it is. And we really don't have to accept that. But for some reason, we have a tendency to do that. We need to fight against that really, really hard. Taking our thoughts captive, to me, it's a full-time job, and it's something that I think I'll just continue to do. In a way, it gets easier because I'm quicker to notice those negative things that I may be saying to myself, but I still have to stand up and fight against them and make sure that I'm counteracting those with God's truth.
Yeah. I mean, that's the same thing for me. I'm like, wait a minute, wait, I tell people not to do that. Okay, don't do that, Nancy. I mean, it's a
Right.
concept that, but that's how Satan gets his little foothold into you.
He
If he can just get
does.
one little negativity in you, then he can just put an avalanche in there and then it just domino effects.
Yeah, that's the truth. I love on this was actually a Zig Ziglar quote that you have in the very beginning, and it says, fear has two meanings: fear everything and run, or face everything and rise. And I love that picture because my mentor just recently, she said something, I was meeting with her, and she said something like this, and I don't know where the quote came from, but it was, fear drives, faith leads.
Mhm.
Have you heard that?
I always say, God, let God lead you, you know, be led by God versus driven.
Yes.
And that's the same type thing. And it does fear just, you can do a lot with it, but you're not happy. You just have that panicky feeling in there. But that's where you have to go fear to faith, in the
Yeah.
faith and letting God lead you.
And I want to be led. I don't want to be driven. Do you know,
Hmm.
there's a visual difference. I think about even Psalm 23, he leads me by still waters. I want to be led. I don't want to be like driven. Has a more forceful, almost aggressive positioning to take. And it's like a runaway train almost. It just drives me. And I don't know, how have you, Nancy, like made that shift from being, say, just driven by fear and the panic and the anxiety that you talked about a moment ago, and really shifted over just to being led by God instead and by your faith?
I think it's a slow process. I mean, we still think it's, oh no, it's got to be instantaneous, or nope, I'm not doing it.
Mhm.
But it's that constant when you feel the negativity or the panic attack, it's just, and it's hard for me to be still. Is very hard for me. I mean, and
Mhm.
I'm sure it is for you too. And I'm
Yeah.
not one to be still, but I have to take that deep breath in and just to calm myself down, slow my heart rate down, and just try to, be in that moment and just be still and know he's God. Because if you're driven, you can do a lot with it, but you're not going to be led by him of what he wants for your life, which is so much more than what we think. And you get so bent on your goal that you forget it may be like go a little bit this way or that way, or you'll learn more in the process by being led.
I love that. Well, tell us, if you can, what was the hardest part or the most challenging aspect of writing the book, Defying Fear? What was the toughest part there for you?
Oh gosh, that's a tough question there. I guess, from the stories, some real reliving things that happen. So that was really hard. I mean, it was very, even like for me editing the book, it would exhaust me so much reading it that I would actually like go to sleep. I mean, it was so hard at times to do that, which, I didn't even having the, I had it's on Audible now. And the narrator, I was like, she's like, this has got to be hard to listen to. And I was like, oh, I didn't realize it. I mean, I knew God had her to do this. And I was like, you're right. But just, you really, but that's why you have to give yourself time and grace, I mean, to process stuff. That's okay. And it's okay. And it doesn't have to be, we think, oh, well, it's either going to be easy and so I'm done. No, it can always be hard, but you learn to accept it, not agree with it, but move on from it. I know if I could tell a story, this gal, when I was in high school, I worked at a drugstore in the mall, and her husband committed suicide. And she was the sweetest lady. And she said, I said, how did you deal with that? I was only in high school. I said, how did you deal with that? And she said, well, she said, you never will forget, but you learn to accept it and move on. And so I think a lot of times we want to hold on to grudges. I've had somebody say to me, how come you're not bitter? And I was like, I didn't want to be one of these divorced, bitter women.
Right.
I mean, then that's the other person has control over you.
Exactly.
And God died on the cross. How can I be bitter when I'm sinful? He's not. And so I think that's the process. Things are going to be unfair to everybody's going to have it, no matter what you are, or where you come from. But to learn that, are you going to let that hold you back and let that determine who you are? Or are you going to let God determine who you are and what you're capable of?
So good. I had a similar feeling, actually, or feelings to some extent. I'm not sure where I might be on the spectrum, but it was very emotional. And not that I necessarily related with some of the stories, but somehow I could just feel it. And I can remember there was one point where I'm like, I can't read that right now, because there were things in here that never occurred to me might even be happening or could happen within a marriage. And it was like too much for me in a way. So I would just put it down, but then there was another moment, another day, another time, I'm like, okay, I'm going to see what happens now. And I would just kind of keep reading through it. But it's so powerfully written. By the way, did you know that you wanted to write? That's just another topic altogether, but where did that kind of desire come to put all this together?
It's all led from God with it. I mean, honestly, I'm not like you would say, oh yeah, she's dead. No. I just, and I've had people say that brought out some different things, but in a good way, the book.
Yes.
And it's written, I think, you can correct me, but so that wherever you've been in your life, that you pull out where you have been. Like if different people, different things, they may not have been in a, abusive marriage, but like some kind of abusive relationship, they'll pull out what they have been through or felt. And then you go through that with Lila, and it's like you can learn to process it and help you to get over that, and then see that there is victory on the other side.
Yeah, I love the structure of it, because it was very much like, okay, here's what's going on. But then at the end of each chapter, something a little detached from all of that, but still applicable. It was more like a practical application. Like there's one section that, and I'm here, I've got it, I have a little dog ear on it, page 157, about taking those thoughts captive. And you're saying, okay, you know, little brain science in here and what's really going on, and saying, here's what you can do to rewrite those old programs, those old stories, those old, you know, things, go-to taglines you've been telling yourself. You can actually do something different, but you're not just saying, hey, good luck, go do something different. You're giving some structure to that. You're connecting the dots in a way. So there's enough of the novel-ish or the storyline of Lila going through, but then pauses along the way to take a breath and say, okay, now what can I do about this? So that was really clever, I think, how you did that.
Thank
I
you.
like that.
Well, because I definitely don't want something to be preachy.
Right.
Like I said, Jesus he preached, but he didn't preach at people. He told stories. And that's why it's, to make it practical and usable, and that anybody, and then, even if you haven't been in a bad situation, but others have been, or that you can prepare to be in a better situation, and also to hopefully motivate people to dream and do, beyond their measure that they think they can do.
It's so good. I love that practical application there. And I would say absolutely not. It's not preachy in any way. It's very helpful. And the way that you've woven it through like this, it's doable, and, enjoyable in the one sense of the transformation that we see in her character. It's hopeful because of that. So what would you say, Nancy, that when someone picks up your book and they read it, what is the big takeaway that you want them to have after reading Defying Fear?
I hope they see, from faith to fear, and then what God can do in Lila's life, then also their life, and how, that they are worthy and loved and cherished, and their unshakable self-worth through Christ. And then the dreams or something they thought about doing, that hopefully they'll pursue that and realize that they do make a difference in this world, and that everybody has a story, everybody has their challenges, but you can have victorious and be happy. And that, the spouse that you may be looking for, it may not be what you thought. And that just dream beyond your what you think you can do. Step out of that, and just see that life, it is hard, but it is good too. There's beauty in it, and not to give up.
So now that you have met this amazing, what did you call him? Short and hairy, I
Short and
think.
hairy, yeah.
Does he know you say that?
Oh yeah, he tells it. He's proud of it. Yeah. He's actually a retired colonel, and
Oh, wow.
and a surgeon too. So, but
Wow.
yeah,
Yeah, you
he
have that
knows.
connection.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's very confident, which is very attractive. And I think
Mhm.
you think you have to be a certain way to be confident, but he balances me out. He's very calm, cool, and
Wow.
collected. And I mean, I will tell you, I did not want to ever get married again. There was no way. I was like, no way. And then actually I was at a counselor and talking to him, and I said, if he met somebody, I'd be happy for him, but I would really miss him. And because we were friends like 3 years, we didn't even hold hands. I mean, I was like, never. Very patient. And the counselor's like, well, isn't that what true love is when you care more for them with them than you do for yourself? And I was like, oh no, tell me I did not fall in love. But he's good. I mean, everybody loves. It's nice to be with somebody that's nice. Like, I know behind closed doors, he's nice. I mean, it doesn't mean that we don't have our moments,
Sure.
but we really do. We enjoy each other, and it's scary because you can find that, but it's got to be on God's timing.
How long have you been married?
We've been married 2015.
Okay.
So yeah, so it's that. Yeah. Yeah, he was. I was like, no, it's not. He's like, yeah, he remembers better than I do. Yeah.
I love that. Okay, so what we need to do, Nancy, is we need to have another podcast episode all about remarriage
Okay.
because, I was single for 20 years. I have 4 children and had been
Wow.
married for 13 years before I was divorced, and then single all those years in between, or those 20. And just, I think I call him Jim, my Jim. Isn't that cute?
That's awesome. Yeah.
He is such a gem. He really is. Oh my goodness. And the podcast listeners will definitely, I talk about him all the time. The thing is though, I do always shine his good side, because if
Right.
he wants to come on and talk about his quote,
Yeah.
his struggles, that's one thing. But
Right.
he is just so I don't even know what the word would be, but he's very steady and confident in a way too, kind of like you describe. And it's very refreshing. And, I just feel so blessed to be in this relationship. It's just been a whole lot of fun, a whole lot of laughs. But remarriage is not easy. I mean, good grief. There's
And
a lot of risk. We are really taking a lot of risk,
right. Right. Well, it's
Yeah.
scary to love again. It's scary to open your
Yeah.
heart. But I always say it takes a very strong man to marry a strong woman. And I would say we're both in that category.
That's right.
But because they have to be confident enough to not feel insecure with that, and then value
true.
that they're strong, and be proud of that. And
Yeah.
it's nice to, feel that. So, but yeah,
Yeah.
that's good.
Yeah. God has really blessed us. I'm quite certain on that. So, oh, this is so fun. And we could just take any little section here, I think, and talk forever about it, Nancy. But I so appreciate you coming on the show. And would you just tell everyone where they can reach out to you, where they can get a copy of the book, Defying Fear? How can they get a hold of that?
Yeah. So it's on Amazon and everywhere books are sold. And then they can go to my website, drnancymeyer.com. So DRNANCYMEYER.com. And they can find the link on there too. And then also if they want to connect or need anything.
Okay, great. Wonderful. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you. Appreciate it.